Hey everybody, I'm Dan, your friendly fishmonger from dansfish.com, and today I want to show you how we hatch brine shrimp here at Dansfish. It's a lot easier than you think. I know if you've got online and researched it, you're probably thinking this is a difficult thing. You have to have a certain alkalinity, you have to have certain minerals in the water and perfect salinities and all that. No. I've been doing this for literally, almost 30 years. I've done it in areas with super soft water, super hard water, super nasty water, super clean water, well water, city water, whatever, and it's always the same. So here's how I always do it no matter what my water, and it's always been fine. Now, I don't know if it'll be fine in every situation, but I've lived, a dozen places or so and used all these different waters and done it the same way, never had a problem. So the first thing is, I like these. These make it easy. These are 2-liter hatchers, little hatching cones from Gemco, but you can do the same thing out of a 2-liter soda bottle. Just turn it upside down, screw something on the end or seal up the end, and you can use a soda bottle. But I like these. They make it super easy. Anyway, what I do is I use this stuff, the cheapest salt ever, and the salt doesn't really matter. You can use this cheap water softener salt, you can use table salt, iodized, non-iodized, none of that matters, honestly. And I just take a heaping 1/4 of a cup of this stuff and dump it in there. Heaps more, heaps less, doesn't really matter, but that's what works for me. I do 2 of these at a time typically, because I have a lot of fish. Heaping 1/4 of a cup of this super cheap 40 pounds solar crystals water softener salt. Then I take this and I fill it straight out of the tap. Chlorine doesn't matter. Chlorine will actually help a little bit to sterilize the environment, and then it'll gradually dissipate before the eggs hatch and be fine. As it bubbles, the chlorine will just bubble out. Now, and this is approximations, right? I didn't measure that or anything. If you've ever visited, I visited the Great Salt Lake and I visited the salt flats in San Francisco where brine shrimp come from. Lake, Mona Lake and all those things. And if you look at them, the salinity varies. Depends on if it's rainy or if it's dry, if the shrimp are towards the shore or towards the middle of the lake or whatever. There's a lot of variation in the salinity. It doesn't have to be perfect. So to that, I just add a heaping plastic spoonful. What would this be? I guess this would be a teaspoon, about a tablespoon probably, once I heap it up there, worth of that. Sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less. It doesn't really matter. These are little lids I put on there so when it bubbles, it doesn't, bubble out and make a big mess. And then here's the rigid airline tube I'm going to stick down there and turn on to bubble, and I'm going to take it over to where I actually let them incubate and show you the rest. Okay, so this is where I actually do the incubation over in this corner of the fish room, and these are 15, 20 years old. So this one has just recently started leaking a tiny bit, so I just have a little catch container under here. As you can see, we've hatched a lot of brine shrimp here. There's salt grime and all kinds of stuff just from years of hatching brine shrimp. The next step is pretty easy. Just take your rigid airline, stick it to your flexible airline, turn on your air, and put it in the container. And at first I'm not going to stick it down right in the center hole. I'm just going to let it bubble out, and I'll show you why. Basically, I want this salt to dissolve and get out of the way before I put this rigid airline tubing in the center hole down here where it will stay the rest of the incubation process. And I'll show you why we do that in a few minutes once that salt is pretty much dissolved. Basically, there's a clogging issue that we're going to prevent by doing that. So we're going to let them bubble, let all this rock salt on the bottom dissolve into the water column, and then we'll be back and I'll show you the next step. So now the salt is pretty much absorbed in, but what's going to happen is there's going to be salt down in here, and if we don't get it out, it's going to clog the rigid airline So I run that a bit until it starts flowing freely. Then I put the air line in. And then I add this water with the eggs and the salt and everything back in there. So you have to clear that out. If you put this rigid tubing down in that center hole, when this area here is still full of salt, it'll just clog the end and your airflow will stop. So clear out the salt. Put that down. And now we'll be okay, at least till this evening. I will do this again this evening. I'll pull that up, make sure the little end isn't clogged. If it is getting clogged, I'll rinse it out with some fresh water this evening so that overnight we don't have a clog. Because that is the one bad thing, let me get those eggs down. That is the one thing that you can run into with these hatchers, is that the end will clog with salt and then it'll just stop bubbling on you, and that's bad news. So I'm going to turn these down a bit. Now that's not for the eggs. Like you can go full boil on them, they don't care. But basically, if I do that, the eggs will kind of splash up here and get stuck on the sides and the top. So I turn it down as far as I can while still keeping all the eggs in suspension. And that'll give me a little less of that with the eggs splashing up here and getting stuck. Because only the ones in the water will hatch. So we're going to let that boil. Tonight we'll check the plugs, and then tomorrow we'll have some baby brine shrimp to show you. Hey, welcome back. It's day 2 of hatching brine shrimp. So these have bubbled away overnight. And now what we're going to do is we're going to shut off the air, and that will allow the shells to float to the top and the newly hatched baby brine shrimp, which we want, to sink to the bottom. So we're just going to let it settle for a bit. I want to show you something though. Let's see if this did this. No, it's pretty clear. Yeah, we did a good job. If we hadn't have kind of did what we did to clear this channel and rinse this out and things, last night I rinsed this out, there would be a salt plug at the bottom of this, and the air would have either stopped or been greatly reduced. So looks like everything's good though. I don't see any salt plugs there at all. So that's pretty good. All right, we're just gonna give that a minute and then we'll come back. One trick you can do is if you put a light on the bottom.
Caroline? Honey, do you see a light?
Baby brine shrimp are attracted to light.
Run to the light, Caroline! Run as fast as you can!
So that will help separate them out. But honestly, I don't find that necessary. Unless you wait too long. If you wait a while and they've molted a couple times and they're up to like their second instar, which is what you call a cycle in molt, basically, then they'll be swimming so much they'll all be at the top.
And it on the pot, and they get into the pot, and they cover the shrimpins for the boil and the burn to the shrimpins.
But I think we've caught them early enough, they're little baby enough that they aren't swimming that strongly, so they'll all separate out. So in a minute we'll show you what that looks like. Alright, so my timer just went off. I always set the timer for 5 minutes. If I forget to do that, then often I'll get busy and I'll come back like hours later and all the brine shrimp will be dead. You see kind of the separation. Up top here, this is where all the empty egg shells, if you will, are. Then there's this more or less empty column in the middle. And then at the bottom you see this orange stuff, that's all baby brine shrimp. That's what you want. And this will die off pretty quickly. It doesn't get enough oxygen and it'll turn into this just compact pile of dead baby brine shrimp if you let it go too long. So about 5 minutes is long enough to get pretty good separation. And then I'm just going to take, the reason I love these, it's so easy. I just put this here, turn this valve, and it sucks from the bottom. So it's going to suck out all the baby brine shrimp that have sunk down to the bottom. And that way I can get the baby brine shrimp without getting all those empty shells in there, because fish can't really digest those shells. So there you go, freshly harvested baby brine shrimp. Baby fish love it, but so do adult fish. Fish up to about 2 inches or so will eat this stuff, and it's great for them. It's full of really, really healthy fats, amino acids. It's part of this complete breakfast.
What did I always tell you? Breakfast is a big boy's most important meal of the day.
Now what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to take this and just put it in the fridge. In the fridge it'll last a day or two before it goes bad. Then I'll harvest the other one and I'll feed it out right away while it's still super fresh. So baby brine shrimp hatch and they're full of nutrition, just full of fats and stuff that they're going to use to grow. They can't even eat yet when they first hatch. They don't really have a functioning mouth. Then they go through a molt and they enter what's called the second instar stage. So first instar stage, don't have a mouth, just little fat, plump egg yolks basically. Then they absorb that egg yolk energy, get enough energy to molt into the second instar, start swimming around and stuff. And they go into a couple of those, and each stage they go, each molt they go through, more of their energy is used up, which means it's not available for the fish to eat. So you want to harvest them kind of when they've hatched enough that the majority of them are separated from the eggshell, and feed them right away. And if you're not going to feed them right away, put them in a cold place because their metabolism slows way down and they don't go into molt nearly as quickly. So that's how you kind of preserve them. And after a day or two, they've kind of absorbed most of their nutrition and they're going to start dying off. So you kind of have to feed them within that time frame. These are all harvested now. As you can see here, there's a bunch of floating shells. There's a layer of clear water and then a whole bunch of floating shells. You just want to avoid getting that stuff, so you can get it down about that far. And now, very important, don't be lazy. Go clean this right now. If you wait, it's going to like crust on there and be very hard to clean. It will start rotting. So the trick is, it's really simple. Just take this over to a sink, get that all cleaned out, and then I basically just go like that and let it dry for a couple hours and it's ready to go again. If I do that, then I don't have to like bleach it out and uber sterilize it that often. I only have to do that every couple weeks or so. If I don't rinse it out right away and don't dry it out immediately after, then I've got to put some chlorine or hydrogen peroxide in there and bleach, whatever, sterilize it completely, rinse it all out, and then use it again. So it's really easy if you rinse it right away and let it dry. All right, to harvest this stuff, I just tilt it on its side. And especially if it's coming out of the fridge, the baby brine shrimp will settle all down to the bottom here. I'm a little impatient right now. We're making a video. I don't want to make you wait and see that. So I'm just going to suck some up. Take it here and let's watch some happy fishies. Pretty much any fish up to about 2 inches will eat this. It's great for newly imported fish, for wild fish, for fish that aren't yet accustomed to normal aquarium diets, and just getting fish through import, getting a little fat on them, getting them transitioned to flake food or pellet food, or just as a treat every week or twice a week to help keep the fish in good condition. They absolutely love this stuff. It's easy to do. It's not too expensive. A pound of it is like around 45, 50 bucks, let's say, which is a lot, but it lasts a long, long time. So anyway, that's how we do baby brine shrimp. I hope that was useful. I hope you liked it. We do a live stream every Wednesday. It's 7 p.m. Mountain Time. That's 9 Eastern at Dan's Fish on YouTube. So if you have questions or comments or want to just geek out on fish, join us live. We'll answer whatever questions or comments you have. And yeah, hope to see you there. But until then, have a good one. Bye-bye.